who do you think of all the science type characters of the blue shirts, that is likely to be the most likely to inspire children or the next generation to go into the sciences? Because I know a lot of you may have been inspired by somebody, may have been Star Trek related, but really, I mean, it's probably Spock. because
no, my one action figure ever was Dr. Crusher. I loved her.
You only had one?
Ever, yeah.
Give us your nerd card back.
I have a Guinan on my desk.
Nice. So who do you guys think? Like, do you think Spock will stand the test of time and there are 9-year-olds out there saying, I want to be like Spock? Or do you think they're saying, I want to be like Adira? Or Dax is where it's at. Who do you think is out there inspiring really cool kids right now to do? We'll start with Sue because she's nodding.
I'm still going with Jadzia, but it's kind of cheating since it's not really just one person's knowledge to have all of those previous hosts that have their areas of expertise. She's just another human computer when it comes to science. And I'm thinking one thing I wanted to add was, to this day, I still, when I travel, I'll print out a peer-reviewed manuscript that's based on what I'm interested in, or sometimes not, but usually it's entomology based, and I love that. I will never, when I stop doing that, I'm dead. I'm still interested, in every little bit of research that's being done. And how about the rest of you? Do you do the same thing when you travel? You bring something to read on the plane or whatever?
Always.
You never get tired of that. I'm trying to put my files in order. I use EndNote. I don't know what everybody else uses for their EndNote is a program where you have all of your peer-reviewed papers that you've read that you want to use in something that you write, and you click on it and it automatically puts it into something you write in the literature review area.
All formatted for you.
I have over 1,000 printed out. I think the money I spent before the internet, and you could just go online to the library that way. I have thousands of, and you have to enter every single little thing. But then after that, you just click a button and it cites for you. But I think it's exciting to read about new things that are being done. And I think that's what makes a good scientist as well. Things change. And that's science doesn't, people say, oh, well, it proves something. Science proves something. I disagree with that. It's ever changing. And I think ultimately, I hate to say that we're looking for the truth, but that's kind of what we're doing. But we're open. We're open. If we discover something new, figure out something new, there's no problem with that. Let's just add it to the list. The evolution of learning about something, a creature or a microbe or whatever.
Real quick, I just want to jump in. It reminded me of something I saw, I don't remember, a couple years ago. I don't remember what the exact subject matter was, but it was, generally about science. And they were having a debate. It might have been like religion versus science or something like that. Whatever it was, the person was asking the scientist, like, kind of like, well, what would you do if it was proven that you are wrong? Or if somebody came out and proved that God exists or then what would you do? And the scientist was like, no, that person would be carried out on our shoulders. We would be like, yay, like no scientist would ever be like, new information.
I think it actually gives you the gift of knowing you don't know.
Oh yeah, I've been proved wrong many times.
The more you know, the more you know, the more you know you don't know.
And I think that's the most important thing, and that helps that would help everybody get along more and really helps the world and continues driving research and everything, but also just helps on a social level. I love that about science.
Yeah, one of my grad school mentors said, Mike, you think you're here to learn a bunch of science, but also remember that you should be open to unlearning a lot of science, because science is always moving. And so I want to give a shout out to Paul, who I don't think we've mentioned too much in detail yet.
Yes, thank you.
But throughout the course of the 4 seasons of Enterprise, T'Pol does a little bit of unlearning about, the Vulcan Science Directorate says that time travel is impossible. And by the end, she's experienced time travel herself. So she was open to that, and it took a lot of hard work on her part, but she got through and got closer to the truth, as Sue was talking about. That we're always trying to spiral towards this truth. We may never quite get there, but we're always getting there through a process of learning and unlearning,
and not afraid to admit if we discover something or that we're wrong about something. It happens, and I think that makes a better scientist too. You can't always. You do your best to research and get whatever it is that you're studying right, but sometimes you miss something, or somebody else finds something out that you didn't know, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, it's not a mistake exactly. There's just more that you didn't see, more to learn.
The last.
How much there is to learn. It's like overwhelming. It's never enough. I would get, when I was working on my doctorate, it was the hardest thing for me was to focus on my one thing. I'd be doing one thing, and a certain fly would have this behavior that's never been written about. And I would get obsessed. I want to know about the behavior. My advisor kept saying, no, Stu, you need to turn around and focus more on this. But I saw more stuff that I didn't write about, about that one fly. I could spend lifetimes just studying one little thing.
Mohammed, what was that hammerhead fly that we saw a couple days ago?
Oh yeah, the stock-eyed fly.
Stock-eyed, yeah. No, but you were going to say something.
Do they have the stock-eyed fly?
Yeah, real cool.
Yeah, they're so cool.
Very cool.
I've never seen one in life, only on pictures of photographs of them.
So I was going to say my last PhD student, the last student of mine who graduated, her name's Catherine Coronis, but she had multiple chapters to her dissertation, and multiple of those chapters disproved things that I had suggested in earlier papers. Couldn't be prouder of her. I mean, oh my gosh, this is great. I mean, sometimes it wasn't just like completely wrong, but I thought it worked this way, and it's like, it's this way, but there's a twist over here that I missed, and things like that. Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
Back to your original question, Ryan, in terms of who I think would inspire people. I think I go back to Janeway, honestly, because I mean, holy moly.
She has a new show for kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, aside from that, that's a good point.
Wow, yes.
That's a great answer. But just the way she, she was in impossible circumstances, but she didn't let the scientists come out of her. Right. I mean, where, she was constantly like, we're going to explore this. We're going to do this. And there were so many times when 7 of 9 or Neelix or one of those folks would tease her and be like, why don't you just like go warp 9 towards the Alpha Quadrant? Stop stopping everywhere along the way. And she's like, no, we are explorers, which, but when she's saying explorers, she really means scientists in this sense, because they want to understand these things. Oh, look, there's a really cool supernova that's doing this thing we've never seen before. Oh, here's an interesting culture that we've never seen before. And that level of curiosity, especially coming from the top. So, I mean, as a role model, when you see that, and this is relating to the point that Mike said earlier, when that's coming down from the top, that sets the tone for everything else. And she really did that for the ship, for the show, for the series in a big way. So I'd pick Janeway in that regard. And as a concrete example, Dr. Erin McDonald, who we all know, who's the science advisor for the Star Trek franchise, has credited Janeway. She actually acknowledged her in her PhD dissertation. So the proof's in the pudding.
Anne Marie, there's somebody named Mary Ann in
my mom.
I just love that Anne Marie's mom is Mary Ann. That's just great. I'll never get over that. Anne Marie, who do you think is the character that might inspire the new generation the most?
So one part of it is like what age group, because every age group is different, obviously. I think like Janeway across the board, she even inspired like Naomi Wildman on the show. And I think Janeway's like one of those characters because she's also in like a command position and like commanding everybody. Like she really has like an ability to inspire everybody, no matter like of all like shapes, sizes, genders, everyone. And then I think it starts like breaking out into subsets. Like I was really inspired by like Dr. Crusher because I was watching TNG as a little kid, and like Counselor Troy. She has like she's so great with her patients and is so cool on the ship and looks super hot doing it. Really stylish. Or like and like
okay, but didn't you like her better in the official uniforms? Like, thank you, Jellicoe. Like when she put that thing on, I was like, actually, she looks better like that.
TV, so I couldn't even really tell. I just liked her hair, and then you know, like later on,
you were going to talk about the exercising outfits for a second.
That's what I thought you were going to say too. Right?
Well, like on Deep Space Nine, like Jadzia is such a cool role model. Like as I got older, and like even now, like somebody so well rounded in her life, but also like so great at her job and loves science so much, and is able to also like let loose and have fun. Which, as you get into like studying for like your graduate degrees and in college to get in, it's so stressful. With you're like so all consumed with that, it's hard to have another like a well-rounded life. And Jadzia is someone who like is such a great role model because she can really balance that. And like she's out at like in addition to being so great at her job, she's also like playing Dabo and has like really fun like a fun crew of friends. And I think like Star Trek has so many inspirational scientists for all different periods of and all different ages.
So since you guys brought it up, here are the two leotards, the stretching leotards from Next Generation, but on lower decks.
Which really are just an 80s aerobics outfit.
I don't think that's a thing. If you had to wear one of them, would you wear the Crusher or the Troy? I feel like...
Here's the thing. I like dark green better.
Okay. Muhammad?
I think it hurt.
I
don't think I can pick one.
I think I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'd have to go with the Crusher. But for dudes, like it would be really called the Crusher. Thing. But
yeah, it would
hurt. Michael, what do you think? Who's a blue shirt, or in Janeway's case, a red shirt that you think would inspire the young generation the most?
Well, I'll just echo the thoughts that, Janeway has a new kids show out. I thought that was a perfect way of putting it. I'm really looking forward to watching along and pretending that I'm a kid again and getting inspired by Janeway all over again, because I grew up in the 90s watching Star Trek Voyager and being inspired by Janeway as well. I also think you can't really argue against Spock. I mean, Spock, it's a little bit unfair because you've got so many Spocks. You've got Leonard Nimoy Spock. You've got Zachary Quinto Spock. You've got Ethan Peck Spock.
We're hemorrhaging Spocks over here.
There are just so many Spocks. So I think the power of Spock and the legacy of Spock as that quintessential scientist will also just continue to get people inspired to go into STEM fields.
Yeah, and then there's also who was it? Carol Marcus, right? If we're talking once we go into the
the one geneticist.
Oh, really? Is that what she was?
Remember her line?
Well, it depends on which.
Can I?
It depends on which series. So, if in Wrath of Khan, Carol Marcus was a geneticist, but Star Trek hates having good geneticists, so they then rebooted her as an engineer when it was in Into Darkness. It's like, no, she was a geneticist.
Okay, so here's a real quick question that I wasn't planning on until Sue, you mentioned it, and then Muhammad, you jumped on as well. About being super open-minded as scientists and how the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know, and so on. That being said, do you think it's even possible to have something called scientific fact?
I would say yes.
I'm saying yes.
I would say
but
yes. Were you going to elaborate? I can
subject to change if something else happens.
Basically, like, I mean, the way you could say it is this, like, I am talking to you all right now. there's a probability associated with that. And that probability is not 100% because, I mean, for all I know, I'm a brain in a box that's being fed something. And in fact, I'm not talking to you all now.
Or the Matrix.
This might be a Star Trek episode.
Right. I mean, basically, there becomes some level of certainty beyond which, now I'm not going to necessarily draw where that line is, but it becomes some level of certainty beyond which it's like, all right, this is a fact as much as we can possibly know anything, it is a fact. And, once it gets the same as like, I know that I'm talking with you all, yeah, okay. Yes, it's not 100.0000000%, but it's as good as we can ever get. So fact.
Really?
Yeah, I think, science is often built off of theories, and theories gain strength by being shown to be observationally or experimentally correct.
Yeah.
And so one great example of a theory being improved without being, thrown out the window is Newtonian gravity, and then its update with Einstein's laws of general relativity. We now have a different conceptual framework for how gravity operates, but the laws of general relativity reduce to Newton's laws of gravity when you think about scales that are relevant to that. So like, planets moving around the sun and things like that, they're all still obeying to a large extent Newton's laws of gravity. But when you get to like really extreme astrophysical phenomenon like black holes, then that's where you need to throw in a little Einstein in there. But Newton's laws aren't, like they were updated rather than like thrown out. So we would say that Newton's laws are, very close to being scientific fact for the domain of science that they are relevant to. Same with Einstein's laws. They've been verified over and over and over again and are as close to scientific fact as you can get.
Right. But then and I'm just playing devil's advocate because I'm kind of a dick. So, because when you're saying that, it all makes sense to me. But then I'm thinking, if there are exceptions to this law, or if there are exceptions to this rule,
if they were called
then I would say that's
or
not
suggestions,
a fact.
no one would buy them.
Right. But then I'm just saying, like, the definition of the word fact, as far as I know, it means that it's just like there is no possibility for an exception or for it to be wrong. Anne-Marie, save me. If you disagree with me too, then I'm 0 for 4 here.
Well,
it's kind of like laws of the land. That's why we have lawyers to just kind of, they're like, set things. And it's also sort of like rules of acquisition. They're set things and then they can be bent a little. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to turn around and say, tell me, besides anything using math, tell me something that's a fact that's not scientific.
Oh, wow. Math is a good point, though. Yeah, math is.
That's what I think. Besides math.
Yeah, that is. Like, for example, when you said, Muhammad, you're talking to me, right? Okay, well, perception is reality. I think we all agree that you're talking to me and that I'm talking to you. But then what if we find out somehow, some way that actually was not the case? What if we kind of like, when people, for example, thought it's a fact we see with our eyes. We don't actually see with our eyes. We see with our brain, and the eyes let it in. I don't really know shit about this kind of stuff, but that's the case, right? I mean, they're just kind of like the windows. And so the fact, I guess I shouldn't use that word, but the fact that science is constantly changing and evolving and adjusting, and even if we're finding, minute ways to add or adjust to it and say, well, except for this, or in this case, then can we, in good conscience, ever say something is a scientific fact, knowing that there's a possibility that it might be adjusted later or proven incorrect?
Well, my point being, the reason I asked the question with the exception of math was more in the sense that I think in terms of science, you can just as well as you can with just about anything else, right? That, even if you say something outside of science, you say something from economics or, pick whatever your favorite discipline is. People say things are facts all the time that have nothing to do with science.
Yes, they
do. I feel like science can be just as strong as that. I mean, this reminds me a lot of Aristotle's allegory of the cave. Do you guys remember this? Where what we see, like it's imagine like being in a cave. I remember this from my intro philosophy class in college. Imagine being in a cave, and around the corner in this cave there's a fire, and what we see are just basically these shadows, and that's what we're perceiving. And we can never actually know what's there, but we're inferring from these shadows in the cave of what the truth is. That applies to science, but applies to like everything we perceive. So if we're even going to have the word fact on something besides the fact like 1 + 1 = 2, and setting that one aside, then yeah, we can know something in science just as much as we can know something in any other area.